Model Context Protocol is the future of human-computer interaction. And I wanted to experience this future myself, not as a programmer, but in my day-to-day tasks. And for 1 week, I tried to replace most of my services and apps that I use in day-to-day life with MCP servers. And spoiler alert, the future is still not here, but I learned a lot along the way, and I want to share some tips with you if you want to dive into this beautiful and a bit complex world of MCP yourself. So let's go. Okay, so for my setup I use Cloud Desktop, and for some MCP servers I used VS Code with Copilot. And at first I wanted to show you the apps and services that I tested during this week. And when I was doing a list of services that I wanted to test, I understood that I don't use a lot of apps. But yeah, still it was more than enough for a week. And to find MCP servers, I tried to use this library from Anthropic, or this one, awesome MCP servers from other company. And I know that they also have this store, I don't know how to call it, which is also useful, but basically they use this library so you can easily search it here. Yeah, and what's bad that there's no any MCP store or something, and sometimes it's really difficult to install them. And probably the closest one to this is this website. It's like a library that you can go and see different MCP servers. And also Smithery is a nice website where, for example, you can select a client that you want to install it on, and then it will give you a terminal instruction. So basically you can install it with one terminal command, but still then you need to deal with authentication, so it's not that simple. And because it's not that simple for some of the MCP servers, it took me more than 40 minutes to install them and make them work. But a good thing that recently, after I was testing all of those MCP servers for 1 week, Anthropic released a way to connect to remote servers for Pro Plan. And yeah, there are some official servers, and you can use Zapier for that. But still, I think for most of the advanced use cases, you need third-party MCP servers. Okay, so next we'll go through some of the examples of MCP servers that you see here. You can use chapters to go to ones that interest you, or you can go straight to the conclusion. But if you go straight to the conclusion, please leave a like and subscribe, because it helps channel grow. Okay, so the first MCP that we'll be going through is Jira MCP, and I have some videos on how to install it and some basic tasks in my previous video. Here's the MCP, you'll have the link in the description. And before going deep into using this MCP, I brainstormed with the AI some ideas how it can be used, and some of them were pretty interesting. I won't go into detail into every idea. I'll share the link in the description, but there are some that I can highlight from that list. For example, move all stories related to the payment gateway from Sprint 23 to Sprint 24 and notify the team leads. Also create a new epic for mobile app, redesign with 5 stories based on our last design review meeting, and create Jira issues from critical alerts in our monitoring system. I think all of them are possible, but the problem that you need to give context to the MCP client in order for it to make it smoothly, because if you do it without context, it will query all of the boards, all of the statuses, and yeah, it takes just a long time. So to fix that, you can use projects in Cloud, and for example, here I have Jira MCP project, and you can add instructions which will give enough context for the MCP to work properly. I'll share a redacted version of these instructions in the description, but yeah, it's super useful. And after that, when I created this instruction, Jira MCP started behaving. Like, it doesn't need to ask all of the questions about the project all the time. Like it knows the ID of sprints, it knows your teammates, it knows the statuses that your project in Jira has, and yeah, it's super fast. And I didn't compose it myself. I just used AI to draft this document. So I took some of the successful communications with Jira MCP. Yeah, and then I just used this prompt, basically analyze the conversation and create, based on the successful interactions, the MD file. And then I went through all of the chats where I had this and enriched this document. Of course, it was too long. After that, I needed to go through it and edit some stuff. So yeah, usage of projects in Claude gives a lot of power to MCP. Probably Jira MCP was my most used MCP for this week. I used it for some tasks. For example, I had a feedback doc and I asked it to analyze it and then create appropriate tickets. Also, usually we have a specific structure for stories, like for example, design subtask, backend subtask, mobile and web. And I had a bunch of stories that I needed to create. So I just gave it a list of stories and then said like create all the tasks with the following format. Also assign it to appropriate people, clicked enter, and with all of the previous context that I gave it in the instruction file, it created it in one go. So it was super fast. And yeah, and also we had a file with breakdown of like what we need to do for this story. We feed it into AI, said create tasks, and it created it. So Jira MCP works really great. The next set of MCP servers that I wanted to try was Google Workspace apps like Calendar, Drive, Docs, Slides, because we use it in our company and I also use it myself. Claude has official integrations, but I think they don't work well because they're limited. Some of them don't have write access, some of them just didn't work for me. But I think the main problem with using MCPs for this is the multi-account support. So for example, I have several personal accounts, I have my work account, and right now there is no ability to switch between accounts with third party or with the official integration. And with official integration, I think it's just impossible, but with third party integration, and it's great that you can tweak something yourself. I found a way through Python script how to switch easily between different accounts, and I'll show you how I do it a bit later. I picked this MCP for calendar integration and it works really great. But when you install it, be sure to follow all of the setup instructions, because I spent maybe like 40 minutes to make everything work because I just missed some little details and it didn't work without it. And again, I asked AI to brainstorm some of the ideas how it can be used. But these are the use cases that I can highlight. So for example, finding a 2-hour block in the calendar, reschedule all of my non-critical meetings, also schedule a coffee chat with someone, and book reviews for many team members. And these use cases are real. You just need to give it a lot of context about your team, about how you work, and it will be possible. And during this week I tested this MCP, but I think I just don't have a lot of meetings that I need to set up in bulk or do some complex actions. For me, UI works best. So for now I didn't find a lot of use cases for me. And before we go into breakdown of the next Google MCP, I want to tackle the multi-account problem. So the solution is that I created a Python file that takes key files in different folders and just switches them. And before that, I created a set of keys for my work account, and for my other personal accounts, I created a JSON file, for example, that has the paths to folders that include those keys and path for keys for different accounts. And yeah, it works well. Let me show you the example. And then yeah, here you can specify the account and switch, and it works really great. You'll have the Python file and instructions also in the description. And I also wanted to know that it worked for Calendar MCP and for Gmail MCP, because the setup process for them is very similar, and I was able to create a similar flow for those MCPs, but for others it didn't work because they were set up differently. I also want to warn that this Python file is not perfect. It probably doesn't handle a lot of things, and I just vibe coded it, but still, it's an interesting use case. The next MCP server is Gmail MCP. And I wanted to try a third-party MCP because I think the standard Anthropic one doesn't have the ability to create emails and like all of the write operations. And the installation process was also simple because it's similar to Calendar MCP. I also did a brainstorm. And here are some of the highlights. So for example, we can generate a polite reply to all of the vendors, also create a follow-up sequence to all leads, find all emails mentioning project delays, and also analyze email patterns. And as you can see, it's really great for bulk operations and bulk actions. I tested a lot of use cases, and I can say that these ones are real, but you need to give a lot of context to the MCP so it works right away, because every time it asks a lot of questions, it searches for stuff, and without context, it's super repetitive and slow. But eventually I ended up not using it that much for my personal and work needs, because I'm not a big email guy, and like most of my emails are updates from the apps or some communication with users. So yeah, but probably for those people who have hundreds of emails a day, it can be a great way to analyze stuff, especially when for Gmail it's a paid feature. So I think MCP is a great use case for people who use email a lot. The next MCP that I tested was Google Drive MCP, and for me, standard integration with Claude worked fine. I was able to download files, do some operations with the content, and I really liked it. But I wanted to try third-party stuff because of the multi-account problem. So I tried this MCP, and it was a disaster because the installation process is a bit different, and if you follow the installation steps, it doesn't work. I tried to do it myself, download the repository, change some stuff, and launch it not as an NPX, but as a node MCP, but still, it didn't work. Probably if I spent more time on it, it would work, but I thought that if standard integration works for me, I don't want to try it. And this shows that the ecosystem for Model Context Protocol is an early stage, and some of the servers just don't work. So you need to pick them carefully, test, and basically use them for your own risk. Also, I really wanted to test Google Docs and Google Slides, but I really don't see value in them as an MCP in Claude Desktop, because basically you can download the doc and paste it into chat, or you can just copy the doc and paste it into chat. Also Slides, you can download the PDF. So for me, it was just not worth spending time on installing them. So the next one is an interesting one. This is Amplitude, analytics solution that we use in our team. Probably it won't be that interesting for you like this exact MCP, but this is a great example of an MCP that is not popular. You don't see a lot of validation for it, and you should be cautious in using those MCP. And to verify if it's secure, I wanted to use another MCP, GitHub one, to like download all of the code and review it with Claude Desktop. And at first I tried to use the official integration with Anthropic, but it just didn't cooperate. I don't know why you need this integration if you are unable to download the repository and do some actions with it. So, but what's great about AI is that it gave me the second option. The second option is that I can do it manually or through using another MCP. And it suggested that I use terminal to clone the repository and then use file access to give it the files and then analyze it. For this, I found another great MCP that I think is better than one that Anthropic has. And this is Desktop Commander MCP, and it has a lot of functions. But the main one that I used for is file access and terminal commands execution. As you can see from here, it cloned the repository and then accessed the files. and did an analysis, and you can see a summary here. So it showed that this MCP had some security flaws, but they were not critical, which means that I could probably use it, but still, I think when it comes to security, you need to go through the code yourself and verify that it works as expected and it doesn't send data to any third-party services. Also, it wasn't that straightforward to install this MCP. I had to download the repository, made some changes, and after that it worked. Overall, the MCP is okay. It has access to some events, but it's still not enough for advanced analytics workflow. But for those of you who are looking for some MCP use cases for analytics, I'll share an example of a Slack bot that we have in our company. So Slack bot uses OpenAI Responses API with the ability to query remote MCP servers. We have our own hosted Postgres MCP server that queries the aggregated analytics data tables in AWS RDS. I like it because it's like a very advanced dashboard. You can have a lot of data in the tables, and it can query it in different ways and create custom responses that before this bot you needed to ask data analyst. And like the next improvement is that we'll add a tool to OpenAI that will call some chart generation library and also show some charts to the users of the bot. So it's a really nice use case if you don't have a data analyst. And talking about Postgres, I think it's a great MCP and I found myself using it quite a lot. I think there are two main use cases for developers and for product folks. And for product folks, I think it's great to, for example, if you're in a startup and there is an incident, the developers are not there and you need to understand what happened, you can go to chat interface and just ask like, this thing doesn't work, or for this user with this ID, this function doesn't work, and it may find the root cause. Of course, for developers, it's great in the development stage where you can use it in your IDE and query the database, find the errors in the database, change the structure. So I think it's really great. Of course, you need developers or DevOps help to set up this MCP because you need access to the database. And if you're a product manager, I encourage you to use restricted mode in order not to do any changes to prod database. And I also use this MCP when I'm developing my own apps, because when you work with Supabase locally, there is a Postgres database and you can easily access it through the MCP, and I think it's really great to debug some issues, change the schema. So yeah, I encourage you to try it. And the last MCP that I'll discuss in this video is Figma MCP. I think it's a great MCP, but the only use case that I found for myself is you can parse the design and then ask AI to create an interactive prototype. And I think for real production development it's not that great. Probably the main users for these are product folks, product managers, product designers that want to test what they design and what they came up with. You can do it in VS Code as I did, or also there are other tools like Bolt that support import from Figma, so you don't even need to bother installing the MCP. To be honest, I haven't used it for my real work because I have a design background and I have developer background, and I think it's not that great for production code. But I still show you the example. So I found this dashboard in Figma community and I asked AI to develop it, and I had a lot of problems installing it, and I probably spent 40 minutes making it work. And for some reason in VS Code it only works in agent mode, but yeah, eventually I made it work. So you can see it's not that similar. It has all of the sections, but yeah, it's different. The main problem is that for my boilerplate code, I use SHA CDN and Tailwind. So I think to achieve better results, you need to have similar components in the design and in the development environment. Also, I think you need to give context to the IDE about your project and how you want your project to be built. And the great way to do it is that you can use agent mode to generate that MD file. So for example, you can use instruction like this. Create an MD file with instructions for AI coding agent based on my code base. And when you go, it should scan through all of the files and create an instruction. And here it's a boilerplate code, but when you have a lot of your custom stuff, I think it works really great. And then when you use agent mode, it will work much better. So this is the final verdict for the MCP servers that I used for the last week. Yeah, you can pause and see the results. But in general, I think that Model Context Protocol is in a very early stage. For now, when you use it for day-to-day tasks, it doesn't feel as you solve some kind of a pain. It's more like a vitamin. It's more like a cool gimmick that you can play with. And that's why there's always friction in using them. I also have stigma of using it every time, that it does something unnecessary, it changes some unnecessary files, send an unnecessary email, so there is a problem with trust. And the security is also an issue because there are a lot of third-party tools that are not official. And of course, there is a possibility to check the code of the MCP server. And also you can kind of verify that it's a good third-party solution when it has a lot of forks or stars. But still, I think it's something that affects the trust in the ecosystem. And to be really valuable, it needs a lot of context about you. And for now, out of the box, it doesn't work like that. For every query, it goes through the search, it goes through looking like how your project or like the thing that you're working with is built, and it just doesn't work really well. I think it's coming to a state where big players like Anthropic, OpenAI and Google will be able to gather context better about your apps, about how you use different AI products and just other products on your laptop, on your phone, and it will provide this context to tools like MCP. Yeah, it will make it easier and faster to use. But now you need to do it yourself. And a good way to provide context to MCP servers is to use projects in Cloud Desktop, or I think it's also available in just Cloud AI on web. And you can give necessary context there in form of markdown file where you can describe your workflow, the structure of your project, your team, like what's important to you, what's not. And after that, with every query, it won't start with a blank slate. It will have all of the context and it will do the tasks faster. As I said, right now there is a lot of friction, and I use it only for bulk operations or compound operations, or also finding patterns in my usage of certain systems. And note like what I mean by compound operations. These are operations that include several systems. Like for example, you can have a feedback document in Google Drive, then you can process it to say create Jira tickets for most important bugs. And then after that you can take those Jira tickets that were created and say like create pre-grooming for those items and invite my team members or like invite team members of other teams. But again, you need to have all of the context to make it faster, because if you make this request just out of the box, it will be so slow. Like it needs to ask about your team, about the project structure and like what you really want. So you need to provide context. And we really need an MCP store where you can install the MCP in one click and maybe then authenticate in one click, and you don't need to mess up with all of the third-party integrations. And I hope that big players like OpenAI, Anthropic or Google will do something like that. And they're doing it, but it's not like a app store. So there is a long way to go to the state where any grandma could install MCP on their ChatGPT or something and make it work. Probably right now the closest way of using MCP like this is through Zapier, but still I think there are a lot of limitations, and sometimes when you have just a couple of use cases, a third-party MCP will work better than Zapier. And so this was my test of MCPs for a week, and as you can see, some of them worked great, some of them not, and probably I'll have a couple of them in my toolbox for day-to-day use, but still there is a long way to go to make it generally accessible and generally usable. So if you like this video, I encourage you to leave a like, also subscribe, or leave a comment if you see how I can improve, or maybe you have questions about some things in the video. In the next videos, I'll probably focus on creating my own app with AI, like basically vibe coding or semi-vibe coding, or maybe I'll focus on agents because I'm also interested in this topic, and I'm interested in how I can make agents work for myself, because I only meet agents in the development environment, or like in some companies that build some workflows, but how can I do it for me? I think I'll explore this topic in the next videos. So see you next time.